cold. You think you could just sit there and ruin my entire trip? I won't have it!
Ma'am, I don't even know what you're talking about.
Ladies, please, let's keep voices down. What's going on
She
here?
bumped me and didn't even apologize, sitting there like she owns the place.
Ma'am, are you sure you're in the right seat? The question sliced through the calm cabin like a blade. Heads turned. Whispers followed. A white passenger leaned toward the flight attendant, voice dripping with quiet certainty. Across the aisle, a black woman looked up, calm yet unreadable, as if holding a secret the room wasn't ready for. Seconds later, the captain's voice filled the air. One announcement that would change everything. This isn't just a story about privilege. It's about power, respect, and revelation at 30,000 feet. Welcome, story lovers. If this opening caught your heart, comment your city below and share this story. It was one of those quiet mornings when the airport felt like its own little world. People rushing, wheels rolling, voices blending into a hum of routine. Among them was Ariana Lewis, a poised black woman in her late 20s, dressed in a sleek navy suit that carried both elegance and calm confidence. She had worked hard to earn her place in the world. Harvard graduate, head of a nonprofit, traveling to London for a global youth summit. Flying first class wasn't new to her, but today it felt like more than just a ticket. It was a symbol of how far she had come. As she walked through the terminal, she caught glimpses, some smiles, some stares. Ariana was used to that. She'd learned long ago that sometimes people didn't see her. They saw only what they thought she represented. Still, she smiled, clutching her boarding pass, reminding herself to breathe, to stay focused. First class greeted her with soft lights and the quiet hush of privilege. She settled into her seat by the window, tucked her handbag neatly beneath her, and glanced at the runway stretching endlessly outside. For a moment, peace. The kind that comes before a storm you don't yet know is forming. Across the aisle, a woman adjusted her pearl necklace and looked at Ariana with a faint, almost polite smile, then whispered something to the flight attendant. Ariana missed the words, but she recognized the tone, that sharp, careful kind of whisper she'd heard 100 times before, the one that said, "She doesn't belong here." The attendant's eyes flickered toward Ariana, then quickly away. Ariana exhaled, feeling that familiar chill of being silently questioned. It was nothing new, yet every time it carved a little deeper. What she didn't know was that this flight, this ordinary morning, was about to reveal a truth so powerful that every stare, every whisper, every judgment would fall silent. The hum of the engines had barely started when the tension began to rise. The white woman across the aisle, her name, Ariana would later learn, was Mrs. Callahan, pressed the attendant button with a kind of urgency that made heads turn. The attendant, a young man with a rehearsed smile, approached quickly. Mrs. Callahan leaned close, her voice low but her tone unmistakably sharp. "I think there's been a mistake," she said, glancing pointedly toward Ariana. "I just thought you should check. She might be in the wrong section." A ripple of discomfort moved through the air like static. Ariana didn't flinch. She stared ahead, keeping her posture straight, her face calm. Years of practice had taught her how to wear composure like armor. Still, she felt it, the tightening in her chest, the quiet humiliation of being questioned without cause. The attendant hesitated, clearly unsure. Mrs. Callahan continued, now louder, her confidence growing with every word. "It's just that, well, I've flown this airline for years, and I've never seen something like this before." The attendant's eyes darted nervously toward Ariana. "Ma'am, may I see your boarding pass?" Ariana's voice was steady, almost serene. "Of course." She handed it over, letting the crisp paper speak for her. The attendant checked, his eyes widening slightly. "This is correct. Seat 1A. But Mrs. Callahan wasn't satisfied. She frowned, her lips tightening. Maybe she upgraded herself? You should double-check with your supervisor." That was the moment Ariana felt it. The old, bitter taste of being doubted, not because of what she'd done, but because of what she looked like. The air around her felt heavier now. Conversations slowed. A few passengers peeked over the tops of newspapers, curious but silent. No one spoke up. No one ever did. The attendant disappeared to the galley, and Ariana sat still, every second stretching longer than the last. She thought of her father. The man who taught her that dignity wasn't something others gave you. It was something you carried, even when the world tried to strip it away. Minutes later, 2 senior attendants arrived. One smiled awkwardly, the other carried a tablet. They confirmed her ticket again, apologized quietly, and walked away. But the damage was done. Mrs. Callahan only sighed dramatically and muttered, "Well, I suppose anyone can buy a ticket these days." Ariana closed her eyes. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. The plane taxied forward. Engines roared. But beneath the calm surface, an undercurrent of anger and hurt began to swell inside her. Not for herself, but for every quiet moment like this one. For every person who had ever been made to feel small simply for existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Outside, the clouds began to close in, dark and heavy. Inside, the air felt charged. Something was coming, an announcement, that would not only silence the whispers, but also remind everyone aboard that privilege doesn't always wear the color they expect. The plane had reached cruising altitude when the captain's voice came over the intercom, warm, calm, and confident. "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard Flight 706 to London. This is Captain Lewis speaking. I'd like to personally thank you for choosing Lewis Air today." Ariana's lips curved into a small, knowing smile. A few passengers clapped politely. But one voice, Mrs. Callahan's, fell silent mid-sentence. The captain continued, "We're proud to serve you this morning, and I'd like to extend a special welcome to my daughter, Miss Ariana Lewis, who's seated in first class today. She's on her way to represent our foundation at the Global Youth Summit in London. We couldn't be prouder." For a heartbeat, the cabin froze. Then came the whispers. Heads turned. Every mocking glance, every skeptical look that had weighed on Ariana minutes earlier, melted into stunned silence. Mrs. Callahan's face drained of color. Her pearl necklace trembled slightly as she stared straight ahead, suddenly small in her seat. The attendants looked down, pretending to be busy themselves. Ariana didn't move. She didn't need to. The truth had done all the speaking. The power in that moment wasn't in revenge. It was in revelation. The kind that turned judgment into shame and silence into reflection. Above the clouds, the world seemed quieter. For the first time that morning, Ariana breathed deeply, not to steady herself, but to let go. Dear audience, where are you watching from? Drop your city name in the comments. As the flight continued, the tension slowly dissolved into a heavy, reflective quiet. The hum of the engines filled the space where judgment once lived. Ariana sat back, gazing out the window at the endless stretch of sky. The clouds, once distant, now looked closer, almost like a reminder that above the noise, there's always peace. Mrs. Callahan hadn't spoken since the announcement. Her earlier confidence had shrunk into an uneasy stillness. She shifted in her seat, occasionally glancing toward Ariana as if searching for words that would not come. But Ariana didn't need an apology. Her silence was louder than any confrontation. When the plane landed in London, Ariana stood, gathered her bag, and walked calmly toward the exit. As she passed Mrs. Callahan, their eyes met for a moment. In that brief exchange, an entire story unfolded: ignorance, realization, and a quiet kind of regret. Outside, cameras flashed. Airline staff stood waiting to greet her. Reporters mentioned her father's name, the airline's legacy, and the foundation she led. But none of it mattered as much as what she had just witnessed, a glimpse into how deeply prejudice could still run, even 30,000 feet above the ground. For Ariana, it wasn't just about proving someone wrong. It was about proving that dignity cannot be taken away. It can only be ignored by those too blinded to see it, because sometimes the most incredible power isn't in wealth or status, it's in grace. Thanks for watching. If this story moved you, share it, and ask yourself, how many more silent judgments go unspoken every day?